It's 2:04 p.m. on the East Coast, but it's always nighttime somewhere. Welcome to the Night Shift, your safe space for talking about UFOs, UAPs, NHI, and all the other things that your friends and family and coworkers are so sick and tired of hearing you talk about. Let's be honest. Guys, talk about this a lot. That glassy-eyed look, that 1,000-yard stare, that's them tuning you out. Don't let them tune you out. Come here and hang out with us. We're cool. We're into it. We cherish the weirdness. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Wednesday. All day. And my screen is starting to look like I feel like it's a little crowded. I need to dial back the graphics a little bit. Remember that scene in Wayne's World where Garth, they're talking about they don't want to be beholden to a sponsor, and they show Garth and he's just all in Reebok everything, like Reebok shoes and socks and the whole Reebok tracksuit. It's just really sad, you know. But we are beholden to no sponsors here at the Night Shift. You guys are the sponsors. By being a part of Team Night Shift, you show your support. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see who's here. Let's check the chat. Alminius, hey. Anon, welcome. Prickly G, bruh, I made it again. Welcome back. You made it again. Thank you. Forward to some unhinged yet 100% rational rants. No pressure. Oh, that's great. Afternoon, Brett. So I had a great chat with Brett yesterday. He's volunteered to help me get the Discord server up and running and operational. So we'll have a fully armed and operational Death Star hopefully soon. And that's something that we're working on. So he spent the first 15 minutes just explaining to me. I'm like, okay, walk me through it. What exactly is Discord and why is it useful? And he actually totally sold me. So I'm in. So we're going to do that soon. Keeping it calm, keeping it real. Thanks, Jim. Siler. Hey. Welcome. All right. So let me get my ducks in a row. Here we go. Hang with me, guys, for one more second here. I was all set up and, the best laid plans. How are we liking these live streams? Are you guys liking them? Should I do stick with 2 a week or dial it back to 1? Let me know. I'm interested to know. I'm trying. This is an experiment. I'm trying to do the live stream thing because, well, for a few reasons. One is it's just more fun to chit chat in real time or more or less real time. And two, I don't have to edit these, so I can do more of them. If I have to edit stuff, it takes a whole nother day or two in a week, sometimes more than 2-3 days to get them all done. So the live streams are nice, but because they're live, they're a little loose and a little less planned, and I feel like sometimes that can be a slippery slope. So please let me know what you think. I'm curious. I could go down to 1 a week, and I could really plan it out and get some nice stuff worked out. I might do like a Friday news wrap up kind of a thing, but I'm still playing with the format, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I like it, but sometimes can't make the live stream. That's okay, Alminius. You can always watch them later if you want. It's more fun to do it live, though, I think. All right. In my opinion, live streams are the best. The UAP topic moves so fast. Good to hear the latest live. Yes, more fun live. Oh, well, we're going to talk some UAP stuff. Got some great Gary Nolan clips today from a new podcast. Not a new podcast. I guess by comparison, we're the new podcast. But I found a podcast that's new to me that is really good. And I watched it over the last half of yesterday and a little bit this morning. And was an interview with Gary Nolan, and it was awesome. And he's just throwing bombs at Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's harsh. It's harsh. He puts Neil on blast in the best way. And I love Gary Nolan because he's so salty. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but he seems like he's got like kind of an axe to grind with some people, and he comes at them with like he's very aggressive, but it's super cool. And I mean that in the best possible way. I love Gary. But I got some clips from that to share with you today. And I just got my copy of Project Aquarius by William F. Hamilton. And this is the book that Hamilton put together on Dan Burrish, and his story. So I'm interested in digging into this and finding out as much as I can. That story continues to evolve. There's much more to explore there, and those videos have been doing really well. So I'm excited to see. I've been contacted by tons of people with new information on Dan Burrish, and they've got this whole conversation going now on the internet that started to take off around this guy. And so I'm going to be doing more with Dan soon. And also the interview with Matthew Roberts, the author of Initiated. I finally got that technical problem sorted out. We had a little audio glitch that was slowing us down. I meant to get that out last week, but there was just a really annoying audio thing that I had to fix. It was just too much to leave it in there. So I got that sorted today. Hopefully that'll go up Friday. My goal is to have that up Friday morning. So, fingers crossed. Let's go back to the chat. Alminius, more fun live. Siler, did you get a chance to see the leaks from Lou's book? No, well, okay, so I just got hip to the Lou's leaks, and I'm excited to dig into that too. I haven't had a chance to go there yet. My available time is limited in the week, so I'm going to try to get to Lou's leaks, and hopefully we'll do our next video on that. Salty Amy Man Mitchell. Tyson does deserve the flack he gets rather than being agnostic about it all. He downright shoots down everything. He does. And that's what Gary puts him on blast for. It's brutal. Lose Clues. I actually have a graphic for Lose Clues now. So I'll unveil the Lose Clues graphic. We'll talk about that soon. Okay, so quick shout out to members. I'm going to start with Patreon because I have Patreon now. And Cameron Martin, thank you so much for being a supporter on Patreon. You are actually one of the first to be on Patreon. So thank you for being there. Thank you for supporting the show and the channel. Avi, thank you also for being there. And shout out to members. Joe R., you just joined. Welcome aboard. Sage Wildheart, welcome. KT, Starfish Troopers, Blood Willow, Space Cow, Poor Management, Mike O, Allen, producer Brandon, Craig William, Beth, Luis, Sage Sleuth, Matt, Pedro, Brian Jackson, Mark Bates, Phi Trader, Avizi, Christopher Hovord, Pack Rat, Proud Vermin, Heather, Willow, Joseph Christopher, Ding Ding, 81, Susita NM, A Huff, Christian Dane, Shadow Patriot, Terry, Alminius, Dr. R Fuzz, paging Dr. R Fuzz, Miss K, BB, Zendra Zero, Charlie Fisher, Thistle's Last Stand, Teresa Bailey, Brett Higgins, Stephanie Erickson, Anthony Haley. It's a great vocal warm-up, too. I like to read through the list early in the show and just kind of warm up the old vocal cords. So I don't know who's been following the news, but let's just do a quick recap. Now this is not UAP stuff, but it is UAP stuff because I think if it happens on Earth and if it concerns you and humankind, it's kind of related. I think it's important to connect the dots here a little bit. Let's go to the commentary view and let's check out the news. World recorded hottest day on July 21st. Congratulations. Go world. We did it. Hottest day. This is Reuters, July 23rd. Sunday, July 21st was the hottest day ever recorded, according to preliminary data from the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service, which has tracked such global weather patterns since 1940. The global average surface air temperature on Sunday reached 17.09 degrees Celsius, which is 62.76 degrees Fahrenheit, slightly higher than the previous record set last July of 62.74 Fahrenheit, 17.08 C, as heat waves scorched large swaths of the United States, Europe, and Russia. And maybe you were in one of those heat waves and got a taste of that. Carlo Buontempo, director of the Copernicus service, said that it was possible at the beginning of this week could eclipse Sunday's record as heat waves continue to sizzle across the world. When you have these peaks, they tend to cluster together, he said. Last year saw 4 days in a row break the record from July 3rd through July 6th as climate change, driven by the burning of fossil fuels, drove extreme heat across the northern hemisphere. And then this is interesting here. God, these ads are just relentless. Yeah, let's go to the reader view. Stick with me on this, people. We're going somewhere. We're always going somewhere. I don't just throw bullshit at you because I think it's fun. I'm like, this is all tied together. There's a larger narrative playing out here. Every month since June 2023 has now ranked as the planet's hottest since records began, compared with the corresponding month in previous years. Congratulations, everyone. Some scientists have suggested 2024 could surpass 2023 as the hottest year since records began, as climate change and the El Nino natural weather phenomenon, which ended in April, have pushed temperatures ever higher this year. As a consequence of the increasing greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, we are bound to see new records being broken in the next few months, in the next few years. Scientists and environmental advocates have long called for global leaders and wealthier countries to phase out and end the reliance on fossil fuels to prevent catastrophic effects of climate change, including increased heat waves. Not just effects, but catastrophic effects. How catastrophic? Well, this is the report that I was trying to find the other day. I think I mentioned this to the Monday crowd. Here it is. This is from Vice. New report suggests high likelihood of human civilization coming to an end, quote, starting in 2050. The climate change analysis was written by a former fossil fuel executive and backed by the former chief of Australia's military. And it is gnarly. You can click this link. This is in this is the Vice article. Now, this actually came out in June of 2019. So a couple years ago, and here we are. We're still breaking records, still raising the bar. And if you want to actually read the paper, you can go here and click that link. But yeah, this is real, and I think it's if there's a reason for increased UFO UAP contact happening right now, you have to look at the other things that are playing out at the same time. I think it pays to look at things that are happening on a global scale, right? So on a global scale, we have a few different things that are all happening at the same time. And I'm trying through this channel to link those things together in some sort of a coherent way, because I think they are linked. And I'm trying to articulate that as best I can. And those two factors, or those two of those main factors, are climate change, or the unfolding climate catastrophe that we're seeing play out now everywhere. I'm not even interested in debating it. Like, if you're not down with this, if this isn't like part of your world and you're just like fuming right now and you want to like, but what about the snow? Just leave. Just go. I don't have time for this. I'm not interested. But climate catastrophe unfolding all around us. Look at the entire biosphere. It's under assault from our civilization, which is cranked up on speed from being supercharged by this consumerist capitalist system that just consumes the natural environment and puts no value on it. Everything that is that has value has to be somehow manufactured later, but the actual Earth itself has no real inherent value. It just consumes all that, converts it into forever chemicals and microplastics and iPhones, and then what we're left with is a depleted world that's full of garbage, where the ocean is more garbage by weight than fish by 2050, according to the best estimates that we have. Where every human being on the planet is filled with microplastics and forever chemicals. Forever chemicals. Forever. They can never be removed. They can't be taken out. They're in you. And you have this system to thank. So that's one big factor. And the other big factor, of course, is humanity giving birth to artificial intelligence, which is going to happen any second now. It could have already happened, and we wouldn't even know. It's possible that it's happened in some air-gapped server someplace, some lab somewhere, and we just don't know. And when it does show up, it'll show up in some really weird way, like some kind of just global computer outage. It just happens. And then things will just be normal for a while, and then they'll start getting a little weird, and then it'll get weirder, and then it'll get weirder, and then one day we just won't be in control anymore. Let's take a quick check over here at the chat. Let me do a temperature check. Support Clint not so much as YouTube. Well, we can all switch over to Patreon if you guys want to switch over to Patreon. Yeah, global change. My Derek, this is my belief as well. Observing the global change and my fantasy hope is maybe they're buying us some time to get our shit together. Well, I'm going to propose to you this possibility, right? Take a look at this. This is the case I'd like to make. I'd like to try and make this case. I don't think I have enough of the data points like in front of me right now to present it to you as a really bulletproof case, but I feel like the general thesis of this idea is pretty straightforward, right? Climate change is obviously happening. There's no question. There's no question. If you live here on Earth and you can look out the window, if you walk outside and it's like 8 degrees hotter than it should be this time of year, if you're older than 40 and you remember what the weather used to be like, this is the thing. See, God, now I feel old. Kids, you see, kids, you're too young. You haven't been around long enough to see the decline happen in your lifespan, but I have. And anybody over 40 has. And if you can think back just 25, 30 years ago, you can chart sort of the weirdness of the weather starting to get stranger and stranger and stranger. And then it's just like, oh, wildfires, they're everywhere now. That was like 1 year in 2016. It was just like, oh, everything's on fire now. Oh, that's new. But then it was just kind of like normalized and we sort of moved on. And then it was like, oh, everything's flooding. That's weird. And then it was just kind of normalized. And now they just call them like heat events. And wildfire season is just longer than normal. And it's not really a big deal. They just have these cute little names that they come up with for this stuff. But what you're actually seeing is a system in free fall. You're seeing a climate system. You're seeing our civilization try to react to a climate that we've never existed in before. It's new to us. And so the weather patterns are shifting and all this stuff is happening in the geological blink of an eye. And my argument is that they knew about this a long time ago. They've known about it a lot longer than they've been letting on. The problems are way worse, and they've been way worse for longer than they've told you about. And what you're finding out now is like 25-year-old information. I mean, it's like the information itself is new, but this would have all been really helpful to know 25, 30 years ago. And we could have, because the data was available and the projections were there. And they could have connected those dots, but they didn't. Now, how do I know that? Well, of course, there are reports like this. This is us saying, high likelihood of human civilization coming to an end. Well, that's pretty straightforward, right? There's not a lot of room to interpret that any other way. You can go read the report yourself, but it's pretty brutal. And basically what they're saying here is that the climate will become so unstable, the weather patterns will become so unpredictable that we're going to reach a point where we can't grow grains at scale. We can't grow enough food at scale to guarantee that enough people are fed regularly enough to prevent some kind of breakdown in the global world order. And that could lead to a cascading effect of events where it could end in a nuclear war. It could end in all kinds of different ways. It could just end in the complexity of our civilization being reduced, and we're kind of forced to roll backwards in some really horrifying way. Here's another one. This is a big one, and this isn't from just anywhere. This is the Harvard Gazette. Exxon disputed climate findings for years. Its scientists knew better. Check this out. Research shows that company modeled and predicted global warming with shocking skill and accuracy starting in the 1970s. Projections created internally by ExxonMobil starting in the late 1970s on the impact of fossil fuels on climate change were very accurate, even surpassing those of some academic and governmental scientists, according to an analysis published Thursday in Science by a team of Harvard led researchers. Despite those forecasts, team leaders say the multinational energy giant continued to sow doubt about the gathering crisis. See, they knew this back in the 70s. Collapse of civilization is the most likely outcome. Top climate scientists. This is resilience.org. Australia's top climate scientist says we are already deep in into the trajectory towards collapse of civilization, which may now be inevitable because 9 of the 15 known global climate tipping points that regulate the state of the planet have been activated. Global tipping points, these are tipping points that once reached, there's no going back from them. Like you do enough damage and the system can no longer recover. And so we've crossed 9 out of 15 of those thresholds. And the big one that they're worried about is methane, a gigantic release of methane from the Arctic permafrost, deep beneath the permafrost. As it's frozen, it starts to thaw out as the planet warms, and this methane gets released. Methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. A gigantic burp of methane comes up into the atmosphere, and it's game over because the amount of methane that would go into the atmosphere would increase the temperature of the planet by 3 or 4 degrees. And then it's just a runaway greenhouse effect, and there's no coming back from that. So I think to the extent that whatever UFO, UAP, non human intelligence activity is increasing, whatever we're seeing, to the extent that it's increasing, it must be somehow correlated to what we're doing to the planet. Why is it happening now? Why wasn't it happening 50 years ago? So all of these different things happening in tandem together, I think, are related, and I think they do tie back. And that's how I arrive at the politics of contact, or the politics of disclosure, if you want to call it that. And it's sort of this new idea that I'm trying to explore on the channel, which is, what should the politics of a global society look like once we take on board the fact that we are not alone and that intelligence is here and it's active, and we start to accept that and incorporate that into our uh, system of governance? Once you kind of open that box and you say, okay, non-human intelligence is here and we have to deal with it, you do sort of start the conversation about, well, okay, well, who's going to deal with it and who's speaking for Earth? What is the body of people that speaks for all humans? It can't just be Americans or the Chinese or the Russians. It's got to be something a little bit more global and a little bit more coherent and a little bit more forward thinking. It can't just be the military. It can't just be 6 guys at Lockheed in some basement somewhere making a deal with non-human intelligence. It's going to have to be a little bit more thought out. So I am curious about what that looks like and what you guys think about it, and how other thinkers are contemplating that future. So I tie it all back into climate and artificial intelligence, because it seems to me that those are the 2 biggest things. We stand somewhere right in the middle-ish between catastrophe and a positive singularity, where maybe we reach longevity escape velocity, we develop super powerful AI that makes capitalism obsolete, and we go on to live in some kind of technological utopia. That's where I'd like to get to. I think that's where Gary Nolan wants to get to too, because we're going to take a look at his clips in just a second. And he talks a little bit about this in three different clips that I've pulled. Let me see if I can grab these real quick. Oh, let's check the chat. Yeah, thanks YouTube for not notifying. The news about the uncontacted Amazon tribes coming out of the Amazon forest because of the logging and starvation. Yeah, I did see that the other day. It's fake. Do your research about our magnetosphere losing 1 to 10% of its strength a decade and a year now. And okay, listen, here's what I'm going to say to people who are debating the climate change thing. Look, it's happening. It's happening. It's like I'm not going to sit here and have this conversation. I just don't give a shit. I don't care that I'm not convincing everyone. I'm moving on. You can see it. It's everywhere. You can look out your window. The weather's fucked up. This is not just me. This is like all over the planet. It's constant now. It's all year long. It's just wherever you go, there's some kind of screwed up crazy weather, Old Testament, biblical crazy weather. And it's not normal. It's just not. Now, you could find all kinds of ways, and there people do this. They will go through all kinds of like weird mental jujitsu to try and figure out some other way. It can't just be the fact that we burn hundreds of millions of barrels of oil every single year. There's no possible, these people, they drive me crazy. They just can't accept that. It cannot be that. It's got to be some other thing. It's the sun. Well, yeah, of course, it's partly that, but it's also this, right? Like, look around. Next time you're in a traffic jam, look around at all the cars going nowhere. Every one of them has 40 or 50 gallons of gasoline in them. Every tire has 40 gallons of oil in it. Everything that our civilization is based on burning fossil fuels or somehow putting more carbon into the atmosphere. Our whole system is based on that. We have the data. It's the most obvious telegraphed punch in history. It's clear. That's why they were able to make these predictions as far back as the 60s and 70s. And that's why they were doing it. That's why they were doing it at Exxon. So is it the sun? Is it the magnetosphere? Is it some other thing? It could be, maybe, partly, but it's also this. And so I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm sick of it. It's a cop out. It does not address the real issue. The real issue is that we cannot go on doing what we're doing anymore. We just can't. And I'm sorry if that breaks some hearts out there. That's the facts. That's the truth. Next time you're in a traffic jam, look around at all those cars, think 40, 50 gallons of gas in every one, especially the big pickup trucks, 70, 80, 100 gallons of gas in those. Now imagine taking all of that. As far as the eye can see, you don't even have to imagine too much more. Just look in every direction, add up all the cars, maybe 150, 200 cars. Now imagine taking that many gallons of gasoline and dumping it on the ground and then throwing a match into it. It would be a mushroom cloud. It would be so much energy and smoke and fire. You don't even have to think too hard about this stuff. Like, that's what we're doing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, thousands of flights overhead, burning jet fuel. All these cars, all these trucks, all these gigantic ships sending shit back and forth from Asia to the United States, all over the world. So you can have a salad with a tomato from California and some lettuce from Louisiana and some whatever from some other place. Burning this dirty diesel fuel, that's what's doing it. Like, the science is pretty clear on this. We don't really have to twist ourselves into knots to figure this out. So maybe, yeah, the magnetosphere, maybe the sun activity is related, but we have to kind of start with what we can control. We can't really control sunspot activity. We can control the amount of pollution that we put into our own biosphere, and that's what we have to be doing. And so to avoid the civilizational collapse and catastrophe that they're talking about means shutting down this machine. And it means shutting down the whole system in some weird way. I don't know that you can convert it over in the time we have. I mean, assuming that these predictions are accurate, which they've been making the same prediction since the 70s. They've been saying 2050, 2060. The Club of Rome did this in 1973. I have the video. We'll watch it. It's queued up. They looked at this. They did all the projections. They took all the trends back then and they fed them into a computer and they basically spit out the same number. They said by 2020, it's going to look really weird. You don't believe me? Watch this shit. I'll blow your mind. Here you go. This is 1973. Here, let me turn off. What is this? This one. We'll just watch the first 4.5 minutes. Watch this.
Effect from 2001. This electronic display emanating from Australia's largest computer is a picture of the condition, past, present and future of planet Earth. The program was originally devised by a scientist working from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Jay Forrester. It was developed under the auspices of the Club of Rome by an MIT research team to present a complex model of the world and what we humans are doing to it. The program, called World 1, doesn't pretend to be a precise forecast. What it does for the first time in man's history on the planet is to look at the world as one system. It shows that Earth cannot sustain present population and industrial growth for much more than a few decades. It shows that simply cleaning up our car exhausts and making some small effort to limit our families simply isn't enough. It's like an electronic guided tour of our global behavior since 1900 and where that behavior will lead us. Well, this is the printed version of what we've just seen on the television screen. And what looks at first to be just a maze of computer characteristics is really a system of very simple graphs which project what's going to happen to the planet over the next 150 years if we don't do something drastic to stop it. Down the left-hand side of the graph is the date, 1900, 1940, 1980, 2020, right down to 2060. Now, each of these lines of letters represents a curve showing some aspect of the condition of the planet. The further out this way they go, the greater that figure is. The further this way, the less. For example, P represents population. So here it is at 1900. And then it comes up to 1940, it starts to take off. Here we are at 1980, up to the turn of the century, and then it starts to peter off. Let's now have a look at this next curve, the Q curve, which is the quality of life. And this is represented by, for example, the amount of space people have, the amount of money they have to spend, the amount of food they have to eat.
Sound familiar?
Now, it increases rapidly up to 1940, but from 1940 on, the quality of life diminishes. And here we are about the turn of the century and we come up to the year 2020 and it's really come right back. More people, of course, means that you start to chew up your supply of natural resources. And this is this curve here, the N curve. And it shows that slowly but steadily the pool of natural wealth in the world, natural resources, minerals, oil and so on, is slowly but steadily diminishing. So this is the situation. As population increases, the quality of life decreases and the supply of natural resources decreases. But have a look at this curve here. This is called the Z curve and it represents pollution. Now, predictably enough, as the population increases up to 1980, pollution increases. There's more rubbish. But from 1980 to the year 2020, pollution really takes off. This is assuming, of course, that we don't do anything about it. So the year 2020, the condition of the planet starts to become highly critical. And if we don't do anything about it, this is what's going to happen.
The condition of the planet becomes highly critical in 2020. Does that sound familiar? Does that align kind of with what we've been seeing since like 2016 with wildfire season just going completely haywire and entire states burning, portions of entire countries just on fire all the time? Stick with it. Here we go.
The quality of life is going to go right back to practically zero. Pollution is going to become so serious, right out here, that it will start to kill people. So the population will diminish. Right back here, less than it was in the year 1900. And at this stage, around about the year 2040, 2050, civilized life as we know it on this planet will cease to exist.
2040, 2050, civilized life will cease to exist. And then, like, What did we just look at? What did we just look at? Look at this. That was 1973. High likelihood of human civilization coming to an end starting in 2050. Research shows company modeled and predicted global warming with shocking skill and accuracy starting in the 1970s. Collapse of civilization, most likely outcome, climate scientists. We are witnessing the first stages of civilization's collapse. This is the nation. This isn't just like some bullshit off the internet. This is like, these are real publications. This is real stuff. This is real information. And it's crazy. It's crazy. So, if you're a non-human intelligence and you're here to help, it's a great time to jump on board and start helping. If you're here to make contact, this would be the time. If you're here to talk to humanity about righting our wrongs and doing something better with our time than what we've been doing, this would be the time. This is the window. So is UAP UFO activity increasing, and is it happening because of this? I can't prove it, but I have a sneaking suspicion that these things are related. And we've heard talk of future humans, interdimensionals. We've heard talk of Gary Nolan actually presents a really interesting point about von Neumann probes. And if whatever civilization, if we're at the peak of our civilization now, and that's going to come to an end in the next 20, 30 years, well, this would be the time. So that's what I'm throwing out there for your consideration. Just curious what you guys think. All right, so let's get on to Gary Nolan, because this is much more this is much more fun because he's just in rare form. This is from, so I have to just get this out of the way first. I found this. This is not. This isn't my interview, but I found this podcast called Through Conversations. You can go here. Everything I'm going to show you, these next 3 clips, are from this guy's podcast. It is excellent. He's interviewed Noam Chomsky like 3 times. He's got Avi Loeb on here, Gary Nolan. This guy's doing killer interviews, and his questions are on point. They're very, very good. I'm a fan. I just subscribed, and I'll be watching much more of this channel. But I'm just telling you that because what I'm about to show you, I don't want to rip off somebody else's channel. But he did this interview, so I'm going to show you 3 clips. The interview is over an hour and a half long, so if you want to go watch the full thing, which you should definitely do, go here and watch it there. With that out of the way, let's go to the first clip. This is Gary talking about his own experience and how that affected his perspective on what's going on. Check this out.
But your intellectual grandchildren can be there.
Oh, here we go.
My thought around what it was that I saw was certainly an instance of an archetype. Whether it was what I can in retrospect see was a classic UFO event, something that went over my head, like 40, 50 feet over my head. To a 12-year-old boy, it was lights on something that vaguely looked like a saucer in the dark at the level of the trees going right over me soundlessly. In my bedroom, it was little men. What were they doing in my bedroom, at the age of 7 or 8 or however old I was? I'm constantly changing my idea of how old I must have been based on how old my brother was at the time. And so, I while neither of those interactions were negative or positive, they were mind expanding for a young boy. To realize that there was something else, because I was clearly not sleeping in either case. And so what was that? And so it caused me to question everything for my whole life. So let's expand that to society at large. If those kinds of archetypes show up on a regular basis to many people, 2 things. One, what does it tell us about the human brain structure that it seems to see this stuff so quickly or easily and infer that it is other, versus, let's say that these alleged observations are real? What is the message that it sends? Because I don't believe that the things that people see they see necessarily by happenstance, I wonder if it is a message. People often talk about, and Jodie Foster in the movie Contact, and we've all heard of something called the wow signal.
Here comes the saltiness.
Right, that signal that you see that somehow only radio astronomers are able to pick up. And we always, Avi's a good friend, but why do people always run to astronomers to get their idea of something? Why don't you run to a biologist or a psychiatrist? Because maybe they should be the first people you talk to, not to an astronomer. But that wow signal, SETI sets the bar very low. In fact, almost insanely trivial. We're fine with something as long as it's 100,000 light years away. Because I can never prove it. It's such a lazy approach. If I can never prove it, I can imagine any signal as being an instance of a technosignature, right? So it's actually a coward's approach, in my opinion. Sorry, radio astronomers. It's a coward's approach. How about you ask the question, not, is there something here? Why don't you ask the question, can there be something here? Because then if you start running the numbers, you find that even a technological civilization as simple as ours, or perhaps 100 years from ours, where we could imagine launching just a simple rocket with a sufficiently powered AI that it could be, in essence, a von Neumann probe, even at 10 to 20,000 miles an hour, we could populate the entire galaxy with human-like things seeded on other planets in a mere 5 billion years. Right? 5 billion years sounds like a lot of time, but the likes of Neil deGrasse Tyson and all the rest ridicule the idea of ET by saying, well, they couldn't get here in any reasonable time. Well, define reasonable. The universe is 14 billion years old, right? So there's plenty of time to get from one side of the galaxy to the other in 5 billion years at rocket speed, 10,000 miles an hour. Pump that up to 0.1 C of light, and now suddenly you can do it all in 500,000 years. You could be everywhere. So it doesn't mean that the person who stepped on the ship in the first place or designed it is the one that gets off on the other side. But your intellectual grandchildren can be there.
What do you think of that? That's a great point, isn't it? He starts to light up Neil a little bit more in the next clip, and it's harsh. You might even feel a little bad, but it's so good. Von Neumann probes, possibly able to reach all points in the galaxy in a very short period of time, relatively speaking, with some form of advanced artificial intelligence on board that is able to observe and record data and possibly even interact in some limited way with the inhabitants of an intelligent civilization like ours. There is an Irish astronomer by the name of Eamon Ansbro, Eamonansbro. Eamon Ansbro. I'm trying to get him on the show. If anybody knows how to get in contact with him, put in a good word and please reach out to me. But Eamon Ansbro is an Irish astronomer who put out a paper, I think it was like 22 years ago, that said that he was able to show with his observations that, and his group, it wasn't just him, it's a group that did this, that we are under some form of automated surveillance, and that at least a large percentage of UAP UFO sightings can be predicted based on they're on predictable trajectory, predictable paths around the Earth, and at the same time on certain days they will be there, and you can go and witness these things if you know what to look for and when to look for it. So what do you think? Could it be that Maybe something like the Black Knight satellite is a von Neumann probe that's just been sitting in orbit, watching, waiting to see if we do something spectacular, like explode a nuclear weapon, maybe. And that switches things on. And then suddenly we're off to the races. Could be. I think it's a really interesting hypothesis. Let's check the chat. Oh my God, Chris Hovard, you are a hero. Holy moly. Wow. Thank you. Another 10 night shift memberships. Dude, I salute you. That is awesome. You are you are fantastic. Wow, this is great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's get a round of applause for Christopher. Terrence, thank you so much. Where in New York, Terrence? Whereabouts? Some human grade. Wow. Thanks, Terry. I appreciate that. Let's go look at this next clip. I think it's even more fun than the first one. That was just a warm up. Check out this next one. He really starts to tear into Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I'm gonna have to resist myself in the headline, because with all of what happened with you mentioned with deGrasse Tyson, it's gonna be that's a whole. I would love to host both of you just to have that discussion.
I don't want to have a conversation with him. I don't want to raise him to my level, to be quite honest, because it's just, I'm sorry. I just don't think he's of the mental caliber to deal with it. And I'm not here to give his ideas any further home. I'm sorry.
You're making it even more difficult, Professor.
Well, you can take it out then if you want.
No, I'm joking. Listen, I heard you, and it made me reflect on, because I do admire some of his ideas, but I also see your perspective on it, and how
he should stick to his good ideas, not the ideas that are bullying. He should stick to what he's good at and actually transmitting science, not his biases.
Bam! Boom goes the dynamite. He tears into Neil deGrasse Tyson. That was brutal. I don't want to debate him. I don't want to have a conversation with him on a podcast because I don't want to elevate him to my level. I don't think he's got the intellectual capacity to handle it. Holy shit. That is intense. I wonder like when Neil's going to respond. And I wonder if this is just Gary like taunting him. I feel like that's what he's doing. He's been doing a ton of podcasts lately. If you go on YouTube and look up Gary Nolan, you're going to see he's been doing he did like 10 different interviews just in the last couple of weeks. So he's like out there and he's talking a lot about the Soul Foundation. He goes on, by the way, in this interview to explain that his problem, obviously, with Neil is that Neil belittles people who believe in this topic and treat it with a sense of curiosity. And Gary's position is like you're turning people off to the one thing that science should be about, which is intellectual curiosity. This is something that makes people curious. It makes them excited about science. It makes them excited to learn and to understand and to explore the boundaries of their knowledge. And here comes Neil deGrasse Tyson pissing on their parade and just making everybody feel like a dummy for even having the conversation. And this, like I said, this interview goes on for over an hour and a half. And like, it's, from what I could tell, it's like 40% of it is just like Gary throwing bombs at Neil deGrasse Tyson over and over and over again. So it feels like he's trying to tease him out into the open to get him into a conversation and to maybe get a response. And I'm curious to see if he does take the bait, because that's what it looks like. I don't know. Let's look at this last clip. It's really good. Get ready for this. This is the one that this is the take home. You're going to want to.
You also mentioned that.
Oh, and by the way, real quick, because I'm just going to plug it one more time. I think it's important. This is the podcast that I got these clips from. It's called Through Conversations Podcast. It's excellent. Go there on YouTube, check it out, subscribe, support the channel. It's a fantastic channel. Okay, here we go.
You also mentioned that there could be a possibility that these non-human entities um, are already here, or could be already here, or have the possibility of being here, teasing us with those signals that we could also go there. Not necessarily, like you say, we're maybe not the center of attention. They're doing their own thing out there. And so I know that Abby works with you at the Soul Foundation. I know that you differ with the ideas of Neil deGrasse Tyson, but if you could have, if right now talking about gut feelings, because I believe your gut feelings are very synced and very, they have the pulse into all the statistics and possibilities and probabilities. So are these non-human entities us in the future, or multiverse? Like where right now is your mindset in terms of those things, and how would Abby and Professor deGrasse Tyson react on those ideas?
If I root my answer purely in physics we understand today, my answer would be, if they're here because of von Neumann possibilities, right? That they evolved elsewhere. They set up basically time capsules that they sent around the galaxy that landed, made more copies, went elsewhere. They landed. When they did, they're either AI that makes something that they can interact with locally. They create avatars of some sort, or I mean, that's the easiest and safest for me to imagine. The next level imagining is, somebody who's figured out how to get at least close to light speed, so that they can take advantage of time dilation. And they can get on the bus on one side and get off on the other, and through either hibernation or something like that, they're still the same thing when they got there.
Those are two really interesting concepts. Really fast before we continue with this clip, there's another 2 minutes left in this. I think it's really interesting that he goes there, because Gary talks a lot about the fact that he's a big science fiction fan. I imagine most of us here are big science fiction fans. I mean, think about it. This is our opportunity to see science fiction actually become our reality. And we're seeing it kind of unfold all around us with AI and everything else, but it could also be open contact, and then some sort of post contact civilization that we get to see. We'll be around for it. But two big ideas in science fiction: von Neumann probes, where a probe is sent out and it is automated. So it gets to a location, it makes copies of itself. They send out probes, and then those go out somewhere. They get to their destination. They make copies of themselves with locally available materials. And then the process continues. And then you could rapidly cover a huge expanse of space in a very short period of time. And time dilation. And time dilation is a big theme in Star Trek. We see that a lot. And it's possible that you could use time dilation to travel to the future. This is where, as you approach the speed of light, time moves more slowly for you than it does for people outside of the craft. So I've always wondered, if you were able to, let's just say, get into a craft, accelerate to, a certain percentage of the speed of light, and then come back. Isn't that the same? If 1,000 years had passed on Earth, isn't that the same as having a time machine? Haven't you just traveled 1,000 years, or however long, whatever the time dilation effect is? Haven't you just made that jump? So super speed, in a way, kind of gets you to time travel in a sense. I don't know. I think that's interesting. Let's go back and finish this clip, because it's really good. The ending is better than the beginning. Watch this.
Less likely, more towards the fantastical, because we can't imagine what that technology is yet. Even RAM scoops and other things. If you're traveling at close to light speed, a hydrogen atom will rip through your ship at that speed. There's a great video somewhere of what would happen if a hydrogen atom were traveling at the speed of light and it were to hit Earth. It's pretty interesting. I didn't even realize the amount of energy that a simple hydrogen moving at that speed could accomplish. So, if you're a ship traveling at light speed, you have to worry about those hydrogen atoms. Um, so, that more moves into the realm of where someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson would be right. That you're starting to imagine technologies that we don't have yet. Once you start getting into future humans and interdimensional humans or multiverse humans or multiverse intelligences, I mean, that's just another level beyond. It's imagining technologies that we can't even imagine how to make. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather not go there. I'm perfectly fine if it's true, but I just don't know how to get there. And so, so that in those circumstances, I'd be more likely to credit Neil deGrasse Tyson with saying, well, come on, where I dislike what people like him do is where they diminish the possibility through ridicule, because that's not science. I think what that does is it does a disservice to people who come forward with stories, because they have a double trauma. They have the trauma of having seen something they really don't understand and doesn't fit with their worldview. And then they have the trauma of everybody making fun of them and their family, not believing them. Right? And so that's just, at best, it's rude. It's just rude. It's coarse. It's inappropriate. It's wrong. It's arrogant and conceited. So, Neil, cut this shit out.
Cut this shit out, Neil. Ooh. I love it. I love it. I love this new energy. This like, man, he's got some fire. A lot of what he talks about in this interview is also how the Soul Foundation's purpose is to sort of, in his words, set up a perimeter, an intellectual perimeter for academics and thinkers to come together in a respectful setting and have serious conversations about what all this could mean. And that's a huge leap forward. That's an enormous step for us, because we first have to come up with some sort of common language and understanding that we can use internally to process all this stuff. That's what they're doing. That's what the Soul Foundation is. That's why it's so exciting, the work that they're doing. They're setting up a space where it's safe for people to come and get together and discuss this stuff at a really high level. And it's going to take that kind of thinking. It's going to take that kind of mindset to get to the next level of this game. So, I think that to a large extent has to do with getting this on everyone's radar and making the conversation more about one of the other things that Gary talks about in this interview is how our defense budget is ridiculous. We're spending $900 billion, $1 trillion a year, depending on who you talk to, on our defense budget. And he starts to ask the really serious question, which I think this is like new paradigm thinking type of a question, which is, could we take maybe, I don't know, 500 billion of that $1 trillion defense budget and allocate it towards some other things that might be as important or maybe more important? We justified billions and billions of dollars on defense spending, trillions of dollars over decades on the Cold War, and they assessed something like a 10 to 20% chance likelihood of that happening. And we knew as far back as 1973 that climate change was going to be exactly where it is today at 2020. They knew that was pretty much a certainty. So why did we not allocate more resources then towards addressing this issue? And if we had started spending $500 billion a year or $100 billion a year, whatever the number was, investing in some of these clean technologies back in the 80s and 70s, maybe we'd be a lot farther along today. And let's not forget regulating our industries. We live in a world where it's sort of just this college of corporations that sort of exist outside of national boundaries, and they're sort of these transnational conglomerates, and they sort of make up their own rules and regulations and just buy the politicians. We need to get back to or get to a place where rational science-based solutions are aggressively regulated into practice by governments that control some of these corporations and rein them in. I think that's really important. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing where this goes from here. Let's go back and check the chat and see what you guys are up to. There's a Macho Man SmackDown style. Yeah, thanks, Terrence. It was. Yeah, he did put the smack. Oh, Catskills. Okay, you're in the Catskills. That's great. Up front, honest, and forthright. He is. Christopher, I'm glad I got your name. I'm glad I got your name right. Yeah, Dr. Nolan is right. He's the right guy to have out front on this, and he's going at it with the right energy. He's not on the back foot like a lot of intellectuals often are. He's much more like in your face about it. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. He's already rich many times over. He's very successful. He's clearly like bulletproof. He's got tenure. He's not going anywhere. He doesn't give a shit. So he can come out swinging and and establish a perimeter around this line of thought. I think that's really important. Please give us, I love your content, especially this content. This is from David, but please give us an idea of your topic. Yeah, that's a great point. I need to do a better job of that. That's fair. I come on because I'm just excited to talk to you guys and do these things. And I get excited and I've got all my tabs open and I'm ready to like just chit chat. But actually setting up the show in advance is something that I need to do a better job of. So I'll work on that. So many people would tune in if they knew what you were talking about. Oh my God. I wish I knew what I was talking about half the time. But you're right. Lying is expensive. Gary made a good point. Future humans would probably be almost as alien to us as real aliens, so they are not us from the future. Well, another point that he makes in that interview that I think is worth, is go back and watch the full thing because he says there's just so many cool little bits and pieces. One thing that he says is, what are the legalities going to be? How do we, he asked someone at the Vatican about the 10 commandments. He said, if you kill an alien, are you breaking the commandments? Or, thou shalt not kill. Well, do aliens count? Does an extraterrestrial count? What if they kill one of us? Does that count? And it sounds like kind of a silly question at first, but when you think about it, it makes you instantly zoom out and go, well, hold on now. What are we really talking about? We're talking about, when do you decide that an organism is complex enough that you have to respect it in a very respect it in a serious way? And it comes back to the conversation around veganism and vegetarianism and killing animals for meat and are whales intelligent? Are dolphins intelligent? There was a paper out a little while back that they were able to demonstrate that elephants demonstrate religious behavior. They worship the moon. Did you know this? Elephants have been seen performing rituals that are based on the phases of the moon. So if elephants can demonstrate some sort of religious concept and behavior, does that mean that we should not ever kill them? I think it does. I mean, obviously, but with the rest of the world, clearly it doesn't. We kill them all the time. But whales, dolphins, where do you draw the line? And then as we go up the chain, what if there's something way beyond us? If they're superior to us or if they're more advanced than us, do they have the right to do whatever they want to us? It seems like sometimes that may happen. If you read some of the accounts of abductions and experiments that have been done on people, abductees and experiencers. Ethics. I'm fine with the formatting. It's been a good live. Amy Mann Mitchell, thank you, Clint, for taking a public stance on climate change. Too many people hop on the conspiracy train and refreshing to hear you and see the evidence you post. Look, I resisted it. Initially, when I started the channel, my goal was to strictly stick to UFOs and UAPs because I feel at the time I felt like that was the real conversation. But as I've spent more time thinking about it, and I think about this a lot, I think about it all the time. In fact, one of the reasons I don't do these every single day is because I already think about it a lot. And if I was doing videos every single day, I would become bored with it. And I like to take breaks so that I can come back to it a little bit fresh. And as I've spent months and months contemplating it and ruminating on all this stuff, it's just become more and more clear to me that non-human intelligence activity here on Earth is happening. It seems to be increasing, and that can't be because of nothing. It has to be tied to something else. And the only other things that I can see that are so big that they would concern a more advanced intelligence are the development of AI, which would quickly become super advanced within a matter of days or hours, or destruction of the biosphere. Why? Because we're not the only thing that's important on this planet. This planet is bursting at the seams with life. It's very diverse. If we are to believe the astronomy story that we're the only planet like ours that's out there that they're aware of, then we're extremely valuable. This planet is priceless. It's a jewel. And I would imagine non-human intelligence would want to see that preserved because of the abundance of variety that's here. So to let one species, us, come along and just screw it all up would be a huge, tremendous waste of potential and disrespectful to the rest of the natural world. And I'm hoping that these beings or these intelligences have a well-developed sense of morals and ethics, and they want to see uh, that life preserved. So those two things are big enough to me that they seem to tie back into this other thing, which is probably the biggest event that could happen to us. Outside of extinction, finding out we're not alone is the only other event that's that big. We either go extinct or we find out we're not alone and we choose to pursue something else. It's often been said, and there's this saying that gets thrown around a lot. I'm a fan of it, that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. And I talk about capitalism more recently because that's the system that we're running on. That's the operating system for our civilization right now. And you can see that it's not aligned. It's the incentive structure that capitalism runs on is not in alignment with the long-term survival of humankind. It's just not. And it's not in alignment with the long-term well-being of life on this planet. It's just obviously not. And so capitalism externalizes all of the these negative outcomes of the system and keeps all the profits and then funnels them upwards to a very small number of people. And meanwhile, we have these like tremendous catastrophes unfolding all around us, and they can't be bothered to deal with it. Like you have South America, Nestle comes in and buys up all the water rights, and then they make it illegal to capture rain because you can't take their water. They own the rights to it, even if it's falling from the sky onto your house. This happens. This stuff happens all the time. You've got companies like Monsanto genetically engineering the food supply, which by it in and of itself, I'm not necessarily, against. I think it's okay if we can create a better form of food that has more nutrients and is better, feeds more people. That's great. What I have a problem with is when they patent those seeds and then they basically come along and say, if those seeds blow off the truck and land in your field and you are not authorized to sell them, they can come in and sue this farmer and take all of their land, which that's happened. And that's happening in India. That's happening in the United States. It happens all over the world. In fact, when I was in Peru last time, I was on the train. We did a train ride to Cusco from Lima. And one of the people I was riding with in our car was an attorney for Monsanto. Oh my God, this woman was the most awful person you would ever want to meet. She even told me, she was like, we own everything. This is a quote from an attorney for Monsanto. And we're riding on a train. We're drinking pisco sours and we've had a bunch of alcohol. She just kind of loosened up and she goes, we own everything. She's like, we own it all. Even the stuff that you think is organic, we got our hands in that too. We got it all. We're into all of it. And if it's food, if it supplies the human race with food, we make money off of that. That's what we do. It's either fertilizers, it's genetic engineering, it's the seeds, it's the pesticides. Like, we've got it all. And she was so proud of this. She was so proud of this. As she rode in a train to the beautiful top of Machu Picchu, and gets out and sees this, like, this stunning natural world all around. This attorney is going home thinking, like, yeah, we got this whole thing locked up. It was just disgusting. It was gross. And so I see people like that, and I'm like, this kind of thinking is so out of date. It's so obsolete. What is the kind of thinking that gets us to a Star Trek world? What does that kind of thinking look like? You know, it's a little dated, but you go back and watch, particularly Star Trek: The Next Generation. They really nailed it because they got this peak human civilization worked out in a way where you could actually see it play out in the psychology of the characters. Like, people on the Enterprise they're not having fights. They're not getting into arguments. There's a little bit of that, but they're very advanced. They're very, it's the type of civilization you want to see. You want to see us get there. So anyway, that's why I talk about this stuff more and more lately. I am going to refocus back on more UFO, UAP related stuff. But to be honest, there hasn't been a ton of news in that area. The biggest news that's going on right now is, like, Lou Elizondo's book is coming out. Okay, well, I'm excited to read it. But, it's one more book. All right. Maybe we'll learn something new. We'll see. I'll check out those leaked chapters and I'll let you know what I find out. And David Grush, his op-ed was supposed to come out. That never happened. They're still debating a new version of the disclosure amendment in Congress that may or may not go anywhere. It's an election year. Everybody's focused on the election right now. There's a slim chance, there's like a 2% chance that disclosure could become some kind of an election year question, but I doubt it. And if it does become a question at all, it's going to be one of those, like, throwaway questions where they throw it out and it just gets, like, the candidate says something kind of snide or silly or whatever, and then they laugh and they move on to something else. It'll be like one of those lighthearted softball questions they just throw out. There won't be any there. So, it's good and healthy to expand the scope of the conversation from time to time, and that's what I'm trying to do. We own everything. Totally normal thing to say and mentality to have. Yeah, it's true. If I only had friends, I would share this channel with everyone. Well, you do have friends, and we're here, so welcome, and I'm glad you're here. That's what matters. Your people will own nothing and be happy. Slargon the Destroyer. Goes with a Gozerian. Love watching your videos while I'm at work. First time I've been able to catch a live stream. Keep it up. Great stuff going on over here. Shoegazer, thanks. Amy Mann Mitchell, a couple of books I am interested in: Capitalist Realism and Dark Ecology. Capitalist Realism, I've read it. Very good. Dark Ecology, no, but I'm going to. More unity, less division, and keep asking questions. That's right. The leaks are a little crazy. So look into the UAP events at Brazil, Jim. The importance of this. Yeah, there's stuff going on. There's always stuff going on. But, there's a lot of noise and only so much signal. And sometimes there's just a lot of stuff happening and you have a limited amount of time in the week to sort through it all. So I like to pick things and focus on them and kind of follow that thread for a little while. I've been on the Dan Burrish thread for a little while. I think there's more runway there. I'm still following that case a little bit. We're going to be looking into MyLabs, military abductions next. That's something that I'm interested in, and I want to discuss a little bit more. These are people who claim that they've either experienced the alien abduction event, and then afterwards they are pursued and surveilled and studied by the military or some part of the military that they think may also be doing something, some form of covert experimentation or some to figure out what they can about the non-human intelligence, possibly. So we're going to be looking into MyLabs in the next few weeks. So there's a lot of stuff. I am interested in Lou's book. I'll be reading it as soon as it comes out, and I'll have a full report. Yeah, Dan Burrish has got. That's what I'm interested. I'm going to read Project Aquarius, and this is all about Dan. So hopefully, we'll get to the bottom of this mystery and just solve that once and for all. Okay, I've got to wrap it there. That's my time for today. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out. I want to say thank you once again to everyone for being here. It's great to see all of you. Christopher, thank you so much again for being a true hero and gifting another 10. That's 20 memberships that Christopher has gifted in the last week, right? Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. It is awesome to see the group coming together. We've got a really great um, team here. Your conversations in the comment sections are superb. I love reading your comments. Please keep them coming. Please stay active. Please stay involved. I'm working with Brett to get the Discord server up and running. So we're going to have that announcement soon, hopefully. And we'll be doing some more live hangout type stuff, and we'll try to put that to good use. If you're interested in supporting the show, of course, you can become a member on YouTube, or you can go over to Patreon and you can search for me on Patreon. I'll make sure I put up a link to that as well. And you can also go to the website if you want and pick up a shirt or a mug. I've got my night shift mug right here, wearing my night shift t-shirt, the Watchman shirt. Get yourself a couple of decals. This is the 3x3. Here we go. There's the 4x4. Put them on your car. Put them on some other people's cars. That's always fun. There we go. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Thanks, guys. It's great to see you all. Please reach out and let me know what you think in an email or a comment. You can contact me through the website. Just go to the Make Contact form, send me an email. I love to get emails there. It's really cool to read what you guys have to say. If I don't respond right away, it's just because I've got a lot of coals in the fire, so I might not get to you. It might take me a day or two. So please be patient, and I'll get back to everybody. Thanks again, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it there. Keep looking up, everybody. Let's get some music, shall we?